Speaking of Courage podcast. What's up, everybody? What's up, Chase?
Not a whole lot, man. Back again.
Yeah? How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
You?
I'm good, man.
Yeah, just watching the trucks flip over on the freeways.
Oh, yeah, it's windy
trying to stay alive.
as hell out in sunny Southern California. It sounded like a tornado was hitting my house.
Santa Ana winds.
I really thought the tiles were flying off. I swear it was that bad, dude.
My house creaks a lot anyway, so I don't really notice it. But
you got that mentone stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's cool. Right on, man. So what are we doing today?
Let's see if you can figure it out. Where do you think we're going?
World War II?
Hey, all right. Good. What else you got?
Oh, is there there's multiple here?
No, it's World War II. But I mean, what else can you tell? I'm trying to see how advanced you are at that.
I'm not advanced. Army?
No, okay.
No.
So we're doing Marines again. I'm trying to stick to
What?
Trying to get some more Marines.
Oh, the USMC thing there was a giveaway, huh?
Well, that's a giveaway, and then the helmet cover, if you know. So the Army and the Marines are going to have pretty similar. They're called herringbone twills or HBTs. But the Marines were the first ones to kind of experiment with that camouflage. So their covers are going to start to be camo in World War II. The Army guys would have no cover on there, or they'd have like foliage and stuff. But then, the pocket's a good giveaway there. Yeah. And then the gear, the suspenders are a little bit
And then they would just do a cloth here, huh?
Yeah, that's just a cloth outer cover. You could take it off, and there's this.
Is that authentic from the time?
Yeah, this is a little later. I can't afford a World War II. That one's actually Korean War era. But
what do they go for?
The cover, just a cloth, $200-$300.
Just for an authentic one?
Yeah.
Is there really a way to tell?
Yeah, there is. There's
really?
Guys that are experts. They call it like sawtooth stitching to make sure the stitching on the underside's right.
And they can't do that, reproduce that?
They try. And then there's little things called Pac-Mans. If it looks like a Pac-Man, it's a fake one on the
this?
camouflage. Similar to that, yeah. This is later. This is what's called a blue anchor cover from the 1950s. But
crazy.
As an aside, yeah.
I always trip out on simplistic stuff like that. They go, oh, it was made with the sawtooth or whatever. Right. It's like, well, can't they do that now?
Yeah, they can reproduce a lot of the stuff, but it's more expensive, and they you're getting knockoffs from China and stuff. They're not necessarily making it to fraud the market. The people here are, so they're
trying to adjust something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do I collect some gas and oil stuff, and porcelain signs are real valuable, and they try to reproduce those now too. Right. And they actually make pretty good ones, but they just look so clean. You know?
Exactly.
So it's hard to say.
Vertigras and all that stuff is patina is one of the ways you can tell. Yeah. You can't fake patina very well.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Easy to give away.
The reproduction stuff, they can just tell.
Yeah, that's why this stuff's fun though. It's knowing what's what. So that's my best display of a World War II combat Marine late war.
How confident are you in your authentic? Is it authenticating? Yeah, authenticating.
Depends on the time period and what it is. I have, if it's World War II Army, I can tell you 99%.
So Rick Harrison could be like, I'm going to call my buddy Chase and get him down
when you watch that show, they're wrong constantly.
Are they really?
It's so ridiculous. Yeah.
How bad?
Real bad. Their valuations are awful. Anybody that knows
I figured the valuations, but like his military history stuff is off too?
That show's ridiculous. It's entertaining, but
So he's off with the historical stuff?
Sometimes. They just Wikipedia things because they know what's coming, and then they'll say it. But some of the stuff that they'll pass over is completely that's worth way more than that, or some.
I saw some interviews with him, and he's says that he's a major history buff.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between a history buff and a military collector. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can be one, the other, or both, but not everybody is.
So where are we headed today? World War II, I take it.
So we got World War II, Marine Corps.
Marine Corps.
Where have we been? World War II, Marine Corps.
Where have we been?
Yeah. Which islands have we been on?
Iwo Jima?
Iwo Jima. We're going back to Iwo Jima. Boom. All right. I want to see how you're getting there.
Do I get my blue belt?
No. You get white, but you'll get a little dirt on your white belt.
Do I get stripe?
All. No, you get nothing. No. Yeah. It took you too many guesses.
Yeah, true.
So we've done Jack Lucas, we've done George Wallen, and now we're doing William Harrell.
And we also grazed over the other Medal of Honor that they...
Correct. John Basilone. We've talked... And there's a reason for that, because Iwo Jima, by some accounts, is the most decorated battle in American history. The most Medal of Honors, the most high valor medals, Navy Crosses, Silver Stars, Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, all those things were awarded in this time period, this 36-day battle, compared to any other battle of its size or of its duration. That's why I say there's different ways to gauge these things, but it's definitely one of the most decorated battles in American history because of the ferocity and what it was.
Just so much as a meat grinder.
It was a meat grinder, yeah, and you're probably pretty familiar with a lot of the aspects of it now. That we've talked about, and a lot of those same things those guys are.
I had
are
no
going
idea
through.
About it before, but
right,
it is an interesting thing, man. Just going keep going forward.
Yeah, that tiny little island. How many Japanese were packed on there? There was 22,000 Japanese on the island. Almost all of them were killed in action. And then the Americans, they were per square foot. That was one of the most populated places on the world at the time.
And just such a weird place for it to happen.
Right.
Like if you would have looked years before and go, this is going to be the site of a. It'd probably be like, what?
If you zoomed out and you were like an alien culture and you were watching, hey, let's see what humans do. Why are they shipping all these people to this speck of sand? And they're slaughtering each other. Yeah, in the.
They'd probably think it was some kind of sacrifice or something.
When you back out of it, it makes no sense. But in the aims of the war, it does, because like we talked about those airfields and everything.
Yeah. So who's our hero today?
So today we're talking about a gentleman by the name of William Harrell, who's a Marine. And again, not super well known. There might be some people that have heard of him. You might actually have seen his picture and not known his story. I know I had. I have a picture of him, and I never knew the background on him. I didn't know a lot about stuff about him.
Yeah.
So this is another interesting one. We talk about guys coming from all over, guys having different backgrounds, different walks of life, and things like that. William Harrell was born in 1922 in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, right on the Mexican border there. So he's going to grow up as a legit cowboy, as cowboy Texas as you can get, right? So we have some of these other guys that are coming from middle class or some, Snuffy Smith type rich guys. This guy is born into horses and horse country. His dad was actually cowboy. There's a difference between a rancher and a farmer. Big difference. Yeah. So this is a cattleman, basically. These guys are riding the ranges. His dad was a soldier in World War I. He was a cavalryman riding on the border, protecting the border from the Mexican incursions and things. He was a border patrol agent, and he was a gunfighter, basically. His dad, they found a newspaper article on him where he had killed in a gunfight. He killed another person in a gunfight by the name of Guadalupe Garcia. Guadalupe Garcia they said he was the admitted killer of another agent. Like he had killed someone and was going around and bragging about it. And then William Harrell's dad finds him, and they get in this Wild West desperado gunfight, and he kills him and takes him into town. So that's the kind of stuff this guy's growing up with. Is
his dad in the picture?
Yeah, his dad's in the picture. So he's growing up with his mom, his dad. He's got an older brother, and he's got a little sister and stuff. So they have kind of a tight-knit family growing up right on that Rio Grande value. Tough dad, tough, hardy people. And he's going to grow up camping, hunting, fishing, doing all those outdoor stuff.
He sounds like a hard ass.
Yeah. And not necessarily mean or cruel, but this is going to be a 10-year-old kid that can, hitch up a horse and put on the saddle and go out and ride for days and go handle business, and you cut your hand or something, we'll deal with it type stuff. Right. So this is just a tough, hardy kind of upbringing. He was in the Boy Scouts. And again, at the time...
How far does Boy Scouts go back?
World War I era in the United States, I think. Yeah, it might have been a little earlier. Don't quote me on that, any Boy Scouts out there. But they have the old... There's World War I recruitment posters with Boy Scouts on them, handing up the sword to the Lady Liberty and stuff. So it's pretty cool. I just realized I forgot my drinks, man.
Oh, snap.
Now I'm going to be second. So in 1931, his dad actually passed away, just, natural causes. So then his mom is going to have to support the family. So they're going to move to a different part of Texas. And he's going to end up graduating high school in 1939 and then go to Texas A&M University. Do you know anything about Texas A&M?
A little bit.
So they're not necessarily a military school.
No, that's not
Aggies. Yeah, they dress like military. They have a real big ROTC program.
Oh, I didn't know that they had a military connection.
Yeah, they have a huge military connection. They're not a service school. They're not Annapolis or West Point or anything like that, but they have at least at the time, a military obligation, and they have what's called the Corps of Cadets, so it's like training for the military, kind of.
Oh, shit, I had no idea.
Yeah, anytime if you watch like a Texas Aggies football game, all their guys in the back, they're going to be standing at parade rest. They're going to have uniforms on. They're going to have their cadet caps. I have
to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, you'll see it now. Football, yeah. So he ends up going there. He picks his branch as cavalry while he's in ROTC because he has that love of horses, and his you can go to school for psychology or education or kinesiology or whatever. He goes for husbandry, which is breeding animals, basically, like breeding horses.
Husbandry?
Husbandry? Yeah,
no
that's
shit.
what it's called. Breeding horses and cows, kind of like 4F type stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Just real southern down-home type of guy, right? Like. So because his dad's dead, his aunt is actually supporting his college, right? So he goes for 2 years, and then he decides he kind of wants to pay for it himself. He doesn't want to depend on his aunt anymore. So he ends up dropping out of college to try to save money. He's going to go get work. He's going to save enough money, and then he's going to go back and finish his school. But meanwhile, he went to school in 1939. It's 1941 now. So what's going to happen in 1941?
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, right. So just like everybody else around America, that's going to kind of change his life. And it's going to change everybody else's life. So he's going to go from education, kind of living for himself.
Yeah.
To now he has this strong desire to serve his country, right?
Man, that was felt everywhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You couldn't get away from it. And like we talked about, even if you weren't patriotic, which most people were, you're seeing your neighbors go, you're seeing your brothers go, you're seeing your sisters go, you're seeing everybody else, join the war effort. So you're going to be a part of that in one way or another with whatever it is. So he decides he's going to join the military.
Sorry.
So he actually, for whatever reason, he decides he wants to join the Navy. I don't know if that was a Texas thing. He'd never seen the ocean or something, but he tries to join the Navy and he ends up getting rejected because he's colorblind, which he didn't even, it never affected him before. He tries to join the Air Force and same thing. Colorblind. My dad was colorblind, or my dad is colorblind.
So you can't join?
There's certain jobs you can and can't do, so at certain times they'll reject you.
Huh.
Yeah,
interesting. I wouldn't know.
When my dad joined the Army, he wanted to be a helicopter pilot, and they rejected him because he was colorblind. Because you have to be able to, if you're calling in smokes and stuff, hey, we got green smoke over here and you can't tell the difference. So they just made him an infantryman, which is kind of the fallback. So similar with William Harrell, he decides, screw it, then if I'm going to go in the military, I'm going to go as hardcore as I can get. So he joins the United States Marine Corps. He joins in July 3rd of 1942. So right before the 4th of July, he's going to end up joining the Marine Corps. This is still early in the war. But Guadalcanal's happened, we're starting to push back. So you're seeing all those things on the news. You're seeing what's going on in the world. And that's where he's going to kind of get indoctrinated into when the Marines are swelling their ranks and they're fighting all over the Pacific. So like Jack Lucas, like those other guys, he's hearing the stories of people coming back. He does his boot camp in San Diego, MCRD, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, which is where all the West Coast guys are going to go to. So he's Texas. So I guess that shot him over here instead of Parris Island. He's going to go to armor school. He's going to go to rocket school, and then he's going to join. Today they'll say, you join the fleet. He's going to go ship to Hawaii for parts unknown. So go to Hawaii, kind of expecting combat. By now he's been in the Marine Corps a while. They end up just doing training. You remember the Wallen episode?
Yep.
When in Hawaii, that's what you're doing. You're not sightseeing and surfing in Hawaii, right? You're doing long force road marches. You're up at night. You're sitting out in the rain. You're just kind of being miserable. From there, he goes to Saipan, which was the site of a hellacious battle, but he's not taking part in the battle. He's there after the fact. He's dealing with that training again, just training. So
now they're just training there where the battle had been.
And they're using what they've learned in the previous battles, because if you know a lot about the war, Guadalcanal early on was nothing like Iwo Jima. It was a completely different battle. So every new battle has new challenges, but they're learning from the old one. So they're taking these things they've learned, and he's going to be meeting these people that have been in these previous battles, and they're going to be hearing these stories.
Just
sharpening things, but it's also this big black cloud that's kind of looming over the horizon, if you will. You know what I mean? You're talking to guys that may have fought in these battles where in their platoon, they had 30 guys, and then only 5 or 6 of them walked off the island. So that's going to be bearing on you to some point. He ends up spending a year and a half in the Pacific training, and then he comes back to the United States where they're forming the 5th Marine Division, and he's one of the founding members of the 28th Marine Regiment, which becomes famous. They're the flag raisers on Iwo Jima.
Okay.
So he's going to be one of those founding members of that unit. Right. So he ends up being a part of Alpha Company or A Company. They were probably called Able Company back then. 1st Battalion, 28th Marines. We would say 128th Infantry in the Army, but they say 1st Battalion, 28th Marines. I think that's right. The 5th Marine Division. January 7th, 1945, they're going to set sail for parts unknown, which, as we know now, is going to be Iwo Jima, right?
They didn't want to tell anybody, right?
They have to keep secrecy because the Japanese are all over the Pacific. They don't know where we're coming, so it's disadvantageous for us to let them know. And also, there's submarines out there. There's things like that. So they have to keep it secret. Yeah, so they don't know where they're going. But this is going to be that sailing on the troop ships. This is going to be being in the hold where everything smells like vomit. Everyone smells like grease. Everyone smells like body odor. You're stacked 6 or 7 high down there. You're dealing with all that. So he's going to be there just...
A lot of these guys have only second time on the ship, right?
And he's from Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
He's been on the ships because he's been back and forth to the Pacific training, but this is such an odd environment. And again, if you are in the moment, it makes sense to them. But if you scale back from him, it's like, how did this kid, whose dad was a cowboy in Texas, end up on a ship fighting the Japanese going to this little island?
Crazy.
But that's where he is. So on February 19th, 1945, that's going to be the first day of Iwo Jima, and he's in the 5th Marine Division. We've talked about Iwo Jima before. What do you remember about Iwo?
Sulfur.
What else?
Black sand.
Black sand, that's right.
Trenches, hiding under holes.
Right.
getting mowed down on the beach.
Exactly.
Pushing forward.
So that's a kind of a good summation of it. The terrain is one of your biggest enemies, right? That black sand. And again, next time you guys go to the beach, go out to the ocean to like swimming level, to waist level, and just try to run in. And when you get to the sand, dig your feet in and try to run in. And now imagine that someone's shooting at you while you're doing that. And now imagine
from
that
an elevated position.
Right, a fortified position. Now imagine it's not, nice California sand. It's sand that you step down into your ankle, and every time you try to lift your foot up, it's heavier, and you're getting fatigued, and you're breathing heavy already because you're so scared, right?
Going on around you.
And you're stepping over bodies, and you're seeing people dying, and you're seeing things explode, and your own guys are shooting from behind you, and all that kind of stuff that's going on. Imagine all that, and that's what these guys are going through.
Yeah, just chaos.
We've talked about Iwo Jima too, looking like a pork chop a little bit. Hopefully you can put up a picture here. But there's a small part on the bottom of the island, which is Mount Suribachi, which is where we raise the flag. And then there's that bigger up part. So his unit's responsibility is they're going to cut the neck off. They're going to cut this island off, and they're going to separate Suribachi from the rest of the island. It's a 75-yard stretch of ground. That's their mission objective. Everybody else has their own objectives, right? Their unit was the only one that actually completed their objective. So when they land, they fight forward, and they are able to cut off that southern part of the island. 28th Marine Regiment, like I said, once they cut off that that neck of the island, they cut the south off from the north, they cut Suribachi off from the rest, but they don't do it easy. Every single step is going to be hard fought. And this is the 5th Marine Division. This is where George Wallen was running around, if you remember that episode where he's just he runs from one hole, and there's 12 wounded guys, and he runs to another, and there's guys on fire, and this is what all these guys are going through. But yeah, for sure, absolutely. There was quite a few people on the island, so it'd be difficult, and they would have never known it. But yeah, all these guys could have crossed paths, because again, in the Wallen episode, he specifically remembers pushing forward, and then there's a pause, and everybody's standing around, and then he looks over, and it's John Bassilone's body. Yeah, right. That's two Medal of Honors crossing paths. That's one living Medal of Honor recipient crossing the path of a dead Medal of Honor recipient on this small stretch of land.
Wow, man.
And I don't remember the exact numbers, but there was I think 14 Marines and 8 sailors or something like that are in the Medal of Honor on Iwo Jima in this tightly packed, condensed little area.
That's crazy.
And then on the Japanese side too, we're never going to really know, but think about the valorous acts that are going on over there. Right or wrong, or enemy or foe, they're doing things too, right? So this tiny little
just
hive of humanity at its worst is producing people doing things at their best, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? War's the worst thing that can possibly happen, but it's creating these heroes. And if we could interview the dead Japanese, I'm sure you'd hear stories from their point of view too of these heroic things and these people giving their lives.
Isn't that weird, the perspective?
Yeah. And you hear that a lot when you talk to soldiers. The thing that scared me most was when my enemy came close and I saw that his face looked just like mine. That like, holy shit, he's just doing the same thing I'm doing. That could be me. And sometimes you'll hear, we could have been friends in the civilian world. This guy probably liked music. Life. He probably liked girls. He probably liked whatever it was. But none of that matters in the big picture. None of that matters in the little picture. Because in the little picture, your job's to kill me and my job's to kill you. And this is William Harrell's job right now. So he's going to be fighting for every inch of ground. They cut that neck off the island, but as we know, this battle's 36 days long. So even though we're raising that flag on Suribachi, there's 36 days of hell.
What day was the flag raised?
I think it was the 5th.
Oh, shit.
I'd have to check.
So it hadn't even begun.
No, they took the high ground, but the battle was yet to go, right? And Harrell's definitely going to be seeing this. So we always speculate, did they see the flag raising? Harrell's in the 28th Regiment. He is on the southern part of the island. His guys and his unit are the ones that go up and put that flag up.
Is he up there on the hill?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't have any way to know, but I don't believe so. He never mentioned it. Nobody ever mentioned it in any of the things I read. So I don't think so, but he's going to be down to where this is going on.
So wherever their unit is, they sent a group of guys up.
Correct. They're going to be consolidated in this area. And they're going to watch that flag raising. And like we've talked about, it was February 23rd when they took Suribachi, and February 19th was the landing. So 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23. So yeah, the 5th day, I believe. So they're going to watch that flag raising go up, and you're going to have that sense of elation and that maybe you're going to survive this thing, not realizing what hell is still awaiting you.
Yeah, dude, like a false sense of security.
Almost. Yeah. It's hard to say.
I wonder how they thought about it. I wonder if they knew what lie ahead, or if that was like a cool, we got it, and then no, we don't.
You can almost imagine his unit, because they were actually having success. They had extremely heavy casualties. They're seeing all these things, but they actually completed their objective. They pushed across the island. They're seeing the flag raise, and they might have thought, "Hey, we're winning here."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're not.
Whereas
they're
a guy on the northern part of the
chaos.
island that's seeing nothing but defeat, and not that it was defeat, but it might feel like that.
Yeah.
So to them, they might have thought, "Hey, we're almost out of here."
That's always the interesting part about this particular island is depending upon where you were, like we've talked about before, you could have totally thought you're just getting slaughtered.
Right. And
like,
that's
oh my God, we're all going to die for sure.
That's not just this battle. That's the fog of war. That's what the chaos is.
It's so easy to pull back and look at it now with time and with perspective and stuff. But man, in those trenches, that's one thing we don't ever take into consideration really about what these guys are thinking. They don't know if they're on the winning team. And like I always say, if you are on the winning team, if they lose 1,000 guys and you lose 50 guys, but you're one of those guys that gets killed, that was a horrible day to you, right? Yeah. So you're gonna feel that overwhelming you're just
force
as dead
coming
as
on you,
thousand.
that helplessness, and that crushing that's coming on top of you, that steamroller of fate that you can't stop. It doesn't matter if you're on the winning side or the losing side.
I wonder how many battles happen like that, where little separate battles were happening. This battalion or whatever group is getting just smashed and killed. To them, the battle was lost. You know what I mean?
And that's why battles can shift on moments and people, right? Because somebody can carry the day and somebody can move forward and things like that. So William Harrell, just like it's very important in a lot of these things, he's going to have a buddy, okay? He's going to have what we call a battle buddy. So his is going to be a PFC by the name of Andrew Carter. William's a sergeant, okay? So he's 23 years old. Carter's going to be a little bit younger. He's a private, so he's going to be kind of in charge. But these guys are going to be fighting together for 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks that they're on the island until March 3rd, 1945. So for 2 weeks, they're experiencing every part of the hell that is Iwo Jima.
What are they seeing in those 2 weeks?
In these 2 weeks, they're dealing with that black sulfur sand. On that initial landing, you're landing amongst wrecked tanks, wrecked landing craft, wrecked airplanes.
Yeah, some of the photos,
all those things.
We keep talking beach, like you're running up the beach. It's just chaos, man. There's boats dropping soldiers off. There's shit overturned. There's explosions.
And think about the psychological effect of that, right? Because you feel safe in a tank, right?
Yeah.
Or behind a tank or behind an armored vehicle. All you're wearing is this HBT shirt. When you see a tank to the left of you or a landing craft that's just blown to hell and everybody's dead on it and they're charred to bits, that's going to make you go, holy shit, how the hell am I going to survive if this is exploding, And you're watching these ships in the harbor and you're seeing these giant salvos of missiles going across and the Japanese are still fighting and you're moving and there's nothing you can do. And again, you can be the most skilled person in the world, but if the Japanese soldier's waiting behind you in his little foxhole and he pops out of his spider hole and he shoots you in the back and everybody kills him, he still just shot your buddy in the back. And you're dealing with that fatigue. You're dealing with that dirt. You're dealing with that blood. You're dealing with the frustration. You're dealing with your rifles jamming because the grit of that sulfur sand is going to be in there. So everything you're trying to do. And then, again, if you guys have ever done jiu-jitsu or martial arts or worked out and you've gone to practice for an hour and afterwards when you can barely lift your body, okay, now you don't get to go home. Now you have to hunker down for the night. Now you have to do it again the next day and the next day and the next day.
And not the night. You know what I mean?
Right. And you're
couple of hours maybe.
You're not eating well. It's not like you're making a nice cuisine.
Is this all MREs?
This is all going to be the K rations and stuff like that. The food that's going to come from the ship, that greasy, nasty food.
Eating out of a bag?
Yeah, it's cans.
Oh, okay.
Cans and the boxes and the crates.
Is it bad?
And things. It's horrible. It's
really bad?
I mean, some of them probably would have liked it, but for us, it would probably make you sick. And it might make them sick too, because your intestines are going to be knotting up from fear and pain, and you're just trying to swallow something down, and you're exhausted, and you're thirsty, and you're eating with that dry mouth, and the Japanese are trying to kill you. And there's so many people dying that you can't even take account of it. This isn't like, Iraq and Afghanistan where you lose a guy here and there, and it's a big traumatic event, as horrible as that is. It's so commonplace. You're going to have to take account of it after the battle because that guy was just blown into bits. This guy I saw him get his leg severed. That guy, he's getting taken to the rear.
How do they account for all this? So you're seeing thousands of people die, or hundreds, or whatever it was. Do these men make it back to the States?
No. So we had like graves registration detail would come by after, and in World War II we would kind of bury them in place. We'd make graveyards and bury them there, and then they would. After the war, they started repatriating some of the bodies if they chose to be, but for the most part, they're buried in cemeteries there.
Wow.
That's like if you go, remember the beginning of Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah.
All those graves, that's in France.
Okay.
They buried them where they lay. There's France and Luxembourg and all those places.
Man.
There's pictures of the graveyards in Iwo Jima with everybody, the little wooden crosses and the wooden stars of David and things.
Jeez.
And the Japanese, we don't know. That's why you'll see estimates. We believe between this many and this many died because we don't know. Some of them are sealed up in caves. We don't have good numbers. A lot of them were obliterated. A lot of them cease to exist as physical things almost.
So a lot of stories that didn't get told, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they probably never will be.
Yeah. Man, a lot of like not knowing what happened to your family member on both sides.
Exactly. And remember we talked about that in one of the previous episodes, J.R. McKinney, when he said it's some of these parents don't even know what happened to their son, and they're lying dead on this trail, right?
Man.
So March 3rd, 1945, again, William's 23 years old. They've been there for about 2 weeks. Him and Andrew Carter, they dig in for the night. So they are these battle buddies, as we call them nowadays. You're kind of connected at the hip. You have to watch my back, I have to watch yours. So they're going to dig into this sulfur sand, and they're going to set into their foxhole. And remember, we talked about at night you don't move on Iwo Jima because the Japanese are trying to infiltrate. So we can't tell friend from foe. So all we can do is stay put. And if you see anything moving, you assume it's the enemy and you kill it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing they're going to be dealing with. That's going to be their fear.
So they had to stay where you're at. Anybody moving, you kill.
Basically, you call out, you're going to give a challenge, so you're hopefully not killing your buddy or anything, but you're going to give a challenge, and if they can't answer that, that's going to be the end for them. If you see something moving, you know it's probably going to be the enemy.
Okay. Are they using flares and stuff to light it up?
Yeah, so there's going to be flares, and the enemy's going to be using flares. So their particular position, they're going to be 20 yards in front of the command post. So 20 yards behind them is the command post. Again, this is where the radios are. This is where your commanders are.
Crucial.
This is crucial. If the command post gets taken, that's going to mean a lot more lives. In front of them is the enemy, right? So you're seeing black sand, but you're also, there's ravines and there's caves and there's stuff. So at night, your mind's playing tricks on you to a degree. You don't know where the enemy's going to come from, and it's not that you're just fantasizing or imagining things because they actually are there, right?
Yeah.
So you're just going to be on edge. You're going to just be scared the whole time. Your nerves are going to be shot. And
how do you sleep?
Exactly. And when combat dies down, that's when your mind starts imagining things, and your mind starts realizing
sleep deprivation, the stress.
Yeah. So what they're going to do in this 2-man crew, they're going to take shifts, right? They decide they're going to sleep. You sleep 1 hour, I'll be awake, and then we'll switch off. So 1 hour awake, 1 hour asleep. 1 hour awake, 1 hour sleep. And what that does to you is when you're doing something like that, you're never really awake and you're never really asleep.
You're not getting that REM sleep.
Exactly. Your sleep is hazy and it's interrupted and it's exhausted. And when you're awake, you're half awake too. You start seeing things, you start dealing with it. So they're going to be miserable. They're going to be exhausted. Their bodies are sore from carrying this gear. Their bodies are sore from their rifles. They're hungry. They're just going to be at the worst state you can be. We've talked about it before. When you're that tired, it's like being drunk.
Yeah. You hallucinate.
So add to that the fear, add to that the hunger, add to that
what you're witnessing,
the physical pain, all that stuff.
Just the trauma of what you're witnessing.
Exactly, which is enough to shock the world's consciousness, let alone he's 23 years old at this time. Carter's a little bit younger, kid from Texas, right?
Damn.
But that's where 23. They are. So before dawn at about 5 a.m, when the sun comes up, it's always right around then, right? Harrell's laying down. He's trying to catch a little bit of sleep. As he does so, he's awakened to the sound of a rifle firing. Bang, bang, bang. It's Carter firing his Grande. The Japanese are infiltrating. They're coming up, and they're coming to overtake their position. They're not only going to take their position, they're going to push past it, and they're going to take that command post. So Harrell's in this hazy sleep, and he's hearing bang, 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 right? So he looks up, he grabs his carbine, and he looks to fight, but he doesn't know where to fight because it's so pitch black. He can't tell the enemy from his friends. He can't tell what's going on. He's half awake. He sees Carter firing, and then a flare goes up. And when he sees it, the Japanese are right on top of him. There are 2 enemy soldiers coming right above his hole. So he immediately swings his carbine into action, and he starts firing. Bang, bang, and he fires, and he kills those 2 Japanese that are attacking the hole. So him and Carter kind of get in their positions, and they start firing back. These 2 men, one with a Grande and one with a carbine, are firing, and they're trying to hold off this whole wave of attack because they know if this attack succeeds, whether they live or die, it's going to take the command post. If they take the command post...
It's just them 2?
It's just them 2 in this position. Everybody's fighting all over, but this position is important, right?
This is the one that they're going after.
This is the one they're going after because of their position on the line and what's behind it. So if they fail to protect their position, they're going to lose radio support, they're going to lose communication, all their friends can get killed. If the Japanese get behind their lines, then they have their backs, and then it's chaos. If we try to call for support, that artillery can't help us because it's on us. So this is going to be huge, right? So they continue to fire. They're trying to kind of figure out what's going on. You got to almost imagine, is this a nightmare? Is this a dream, right?
It seems crazy, yeah.
Right, just trying to fire. Carter's rifle jams because he has that black sand in there, and he's firing, and his weapon's probably hot, and they're firing those Grandes. They're pushing those clips in there. They're trying to get it operated, and they're tired. So he goes back. He says, I got to go back to the CP. I got to go back to the command post. So Harrell holds his ground. Go grab a rifle. So he runs back. Harrell holds the ground by himself. Harrell starts to fight. Japanese are everywhere. The Japanese are firing, they're screaming, they're coming forward with rifles, they're firing their machine guns, and they're firing grenades, right? So at this point, Harrell's by himself. He's a one-man fighting post, and he's protecting the command post as the enemy's closing in. He's firing with everything he has as quick as he can. Fire.
The kid's running back?
The kid's running back to the command post trying to get a rifle. Harrell's slamming in a new magazine because he's got that carbine, and he's firing. The Japanese are almost on top of him, so they start throwing grenades. As he's firing, he doesn't see one of these grenades is going to land in his hole, right? Ugh. But in the chaos, in the muck of the battle, in the fog of the battle, in his fatigue and everything, he doesn't see it until a grenade blows up, right next to him. He doesn't realize it, but it blows his hand off. It catastrophically amputates his left hand. He starts feeling a scratching on his arm, and he realizes it's his fingers because his hand is basically dangling by cartilage.
Damn.
So what actually happened was it blew his hand off, and it fractured his thigh. Right? There's so much shrapnel, and the force of it fractured his thigh. So now his hand's dangling off. He's got this grievous wound. And again, we think of gunshots and stuff, but think about a fractured thigh. Think about if you're skiing and you break your leg and you can't get up. Fractured thigh, he's bleeding from shrapnel. He's covered in ooze, and his hand's not working. But the Japanese are still coming, right? So he's trying to fire his carbine, but he doesn't have his hand to reload it. So he's trying to get it to work because he doesn't have any quit in him because he's a cowboy from the Texas-Mexican border. So he doesn't fall back. He doesn't cry. He doesn't retreat. He just keeps firing. He keeps trying to fire his rifle. Just then, Carter comes back up. As soon as Carter gets there, the Japanese swarm the position, right? They immediately attack Carter. Carter picks up a bayonet and stabs one of the Japanese, and another one comes at him and starts hacking him with the sword, with his samurai sword. So Carter's trying to fight for his life. Harrell throws down his carbine, was able to get out a pistol, and he kills the Japanese that's on top of Carter, and he saves his life. So now he's sitting there. He's got his pistol out, but he only has one hand, right? Oh. He's unable to fire his rifle, so he realizes, I'm going to just stick with my pistol. Carter's been attacked by the samurai sword. He had to just kill someone with a bayonet. He's already killed multiple people. But now the two of them get in their position, and they start fighting, right? They ended up being called a two-man Alamo. One guy who's been slashed multiple times and the other guy with his hand dangling off are holding the line. These two guys, this two-man Alamo on this lonely outpost on Iwo Jima, are fighting off these hordes. Harrell starts to take account of his injuries, right? His body's aching. Every time your blood pumps, it's throbbing. He's feeling his leg. He's feeling his hand. That blood's going to be spurting. He's getting weaker and weaker with each breath. But he has no sympathy for himself. He has no self-pity. He looks to Carter and he realizes your hand's really bad because he got hit with that sword. And he goes, you need to get back. You need to go back and save yourself, right? Harrell's thoughts were, Harrell thought he was dying himself. Harrell thought he was dying, so he figured, I can save my buddy Carter by sending him out of here, and I can stay here. I can cover him. I'm going to give my life. I'm going to stay in this position and die. You go back and save yourself, right? So Carter does. Carter makes that moment. He looks at himself, and he realizes he has to go back. So he you can almost imagine that goodbye moment.
Tough of a decision that is.
Looking at your friend and realizing you're never going to see him again, right?
He just saved
your life. And the two of you have been fighting hellaciously, and you're protecting this line. They're both heroes here, right?
Those are those decisions.
Right. But Harrell looks at him, and Harrell realizes, I'm going to die anyways, right? I don't want treatment. I don't want sympathy. I don't want help. I want you to live, so you get out of here, and I'm going to fight. Keeping in mind, his hand is dangling off, right? He's bleeding profusely. He's oozing blood. He's oozing shrapnel.
Broken leg.
Like you always talk about, he's got to have TBI. If a grenade went off close enough to you to fracture your leg, your ears are ringing. You can't see anything. The enemy's still coming. You're tired. That blood loss is going to be taking its toll on you, right?
Absolutely. It's going to hurt like hell, too.
Oh, and as the adrenaline starts to wear off, yeah, exactly. How do we forget the pain? As the adrenaline starts to wear off, though, you're going to start feeling that aching, and you're going to start feeling all those things.
Imagine a firework going off in your hand. And then you're like, okay, fight.
Right. Hand's gone, shrapnel in the leg, oozing all over. And again, to me, it's always that fatigue. Like they say, you're bloodied and you're beaten, but you're unbowed, right? Yeah. Invictus. He is as horrifically injured as you can possibly be, but he does not have any quit in him. So Carter leaves, knowing he's never going to see him again, right? He leaves Harrell there. Harrell's got his pistol and his will and his determination to kill as many Japanese as he can before he dies. So he starts fighting again. The Japanese start coming, and he starts fighting. All he's got is his pistol, and he's trying to reload, and he's trying to do what he can. Two Japanese are able to get onto his position, right? Wow. One of them literally jumps into the trench with him and tackles him on top of him. All Harrell's got is his pistol and no hand, right? So Harrell, refusing to die because he's determined to sell his life as dearly as possible, right? You guys are going to kill me. I know for a fact I'm going to die, but I'm going to take as many of you sons of bitches out as I can.
Yeah.
So he's fighting with this Japanese warrior, and he gets his pistol and he shoots him right in the head, and he kills him close enough to where this blood is going to splatter all over his body, and it's going to mix with his own blood and the grime and the sand and the tears and the fatigue and the sweat and everything else. As he's doing so, the other Japanese landed a grenade right at his base of him again, right? So what do? You're by yourself, you can't run, you can't move, you're too tired. The Japanese soldier's sitting right there, and the grenade's right here. So Harrell decides, if I'm going to die, you're going to die too. So Harrell grabs the grenade, and he shoves it as close as he can to the Japanese soldier's face, and the grenade blows up. It takes off Harrell's right hand, and it kills the Japanese soldier.
Holy shit.
With his last ounce of strength, he decided...
He has no hands.
He has no hands, right? But with his last ounce of strength, when he saw that grenade, he decided, I'm going to take you with me. You might have killed me, but I'm going to kill you too. So he shoves that grenade right into that Japanese soldier, and he does. He takes his life. He takes that Japanese soldier's life. At dawn, when the sun rises and the Americans are able to get forward and the Marines reach him, he's surrounded by bodies, right? There's a protected CP to the rear and to the front of Carter's position and Harrell's position. There's at least 15 dead Japanese that they can see that are around there, and then there's probably more in the back. This two-man Alamo defended this position. And within this two-man Alamo, one decided that he was going to hold the ground, hold that line, and give his life for his buddy. But somehow, he survived. So as they're digging him out, they have this man with no hands, right? One's hanging on, one's completely gone. Again, shrapnel holes everywhere, covered in blood, but he survived.
And a freaking grenade went off a foot from you.
Twice. One of them enough to fracture your
Imagine what
thigh.
That would just do to your head,
exactly.
And your ears, and your eyes, and your...
You'd have to be swimming just mentally at that point. I don't know if he was conscious or unconscious, but they were able to evacuate him to the rear. Then they immediately evacuated him to Hawaii, where they had to amputate his hand, so he has no hands. They ended up taking him to Mare Island in California, and of course they had to amputate his hands. So fortunately, William Harrell survived the war. He ended up getting 2 prosthetic hands, which he ended up being very adept with, right? So he ended up getting discharged from the Army in 1946. He spent some time at Mare Island Hospital, and there's 2 different accounts. One, it was his nurse, and another, she was a clerk, but he ends up marrying one of the employees there.
That's cool.
So they get married. There's a newspaper account I found that was talking about how he used his prosthetic hand, they're literally claws, to put her ring on, and he stumbled a little bit, but she looked up and smiled at him, basically. So on October 5th, 1945, he was awarded the Medal of Honor by President Truman. And interestingly, it was with all these other Iwo Jima recipients. So it was him, Jack Lucas, George Wallen, and some of the other ones. Some of the other guys that we've talked about. You can watch it.
What a crew.
This is where I was talking about. I have the picture at home because I have his autograph signed by his hook hands.
Yeah.
Where Truman's holding his forearm, and he's standing there, and he's got 2 hooks and a big smile on his face, right? Just that refusal to die and that courage that he had. So on February 16th, 1946, he married his wife, who we talked about. His best man was actually his captain on Iwo Jima, who was also an amputee. His leg had been blown off on Iwo Jima. He ended up returning to Texas. Kiwanis raised $25,000 for him to buy a home. They ended up moving to San Antonio. He started to work for the VA like a lot of these guys. He dedicated the rest of his life working for the VA, working with amputees, working with the deaf and the blind. He had 2 kids. He did end up getting divorced, and then he had 2 other kids. Despite having his hooks, though, he rode horses. He became an expert marksman. His son said he could pick up coins off the ground, and he could smoke cigarettes without crushing them. He was very close with his son. His son was actually proud of his hooks. He said that, all the other kids' dads had hands, and his dad had hooks, and he thought that was cool. Yeah. A lot of the other kids would be scared of him, and then after time, they'd get to know him, and they started calling him Captain Hook, and it was kind of a fun thing because he could shoot with his hook hands. And like I said, he worked for the VA. Like a lot of veterans, he never really talked about the war, so when his son would ask him, he would just tell him funny stories. He would never tell him about that night. He told him one story. He said that they were moving on Iwo Jima, and every time they would see like a dugout, they'd think it was an enemy position. So he saw a Japanese position, so he threw a grenade in it, and it turned out it was a Japanese latrine. So when the grenade blew up, shit and piss went everywhere and stuff. So that was the kind of guy he was.
Indomitable spirit.
Indomitable spirit. Unfortunately, we don't have a happy ending on this one again.
No.
He devoted his life again to veterans' rights, to speaking with veterans, to dealing with the deaf, the blind, and the prosthetics. And you can imagine one of the things we don't think of is the toll of the war. How many of these guys that came home from World War II came home broken physically or mentally, right? There was a lot of people out there that had amputations, that had prosthetic limbs, that had to deal with these things. So you can imagine going to the VA and you know, I don't want to say feeling sorry for yourself, but just feeling like, how do I survive? How do I go on with my life? You know, I lost my leg or what have you. And then you see this beaming guy with two hook hands that's saying, look, I can do this.
I'm a badass.
I'm a badass, and you can be too. You were a warrior once, and you still are. And I talked about it before. One of me and my wife's favorite movies is The Best Years of Our Lives. They actually have a real life soldier who has hooks for hands. And in the movie, he's a sailor that has hooks for hands. And it's showing how he gets dressed, how he goes to sleep, how he does all these things. They actually did a documentary called Diary of a Sergeant on him, but you're seeing this, and it's super inspiring to see this kind of stuff, how these guys can adapt. And like we talked about, it is kind of that warrior spirit, right?
Oh, 100%.
And it is that greatest generation of, I'm growing up in the Depression and I'm poor, so what? So what are we going to do about it? Let's fix it. Yeah, I got my hands blown off. It is what it is. Yeah, I got my face melted by white phosphorus. You know,
Not
it is what it is. Right. Nobody's complaining about it.
Which would have been justified. You know what I mean?
Pretty
whines
much
about
so.
his hands getting blown off. You listen. You
right,
know what
exactly.
I mean?
And these are, again, I like when the pictures back me up and it's not just me talking. One was completely amputated by shoving it into a Japanese soldier, and the other was hanging by, I don't want to say cartilage, but it was hanging by pieces of flesh, and they ended up taking it off. So he did as best he could. I can't find any accounts of him ever having any problems with anybody or ever having any issues, or they don't even talk about the PTSD or anything like that. So it's a bit of a mystery, but on August 8th, 1964, his family was away, and he went to a party with another fellow amputee and his wife. Sometime late in the night, they went back to the house. No one knows what happened. Like they say, the coroner ended up saying, we'll never know why. But at some point during the night, Harrell grabbed his Army carbine, as they mentioned. They always refer to it as an Army carbine, and he executed his friend and his friend's wife, and then he went out to the driveway and he shot himself with his rifle.
Again, this goes back to my always bringing up head trauma.
And it's interesting that you do, because that could definitely be, you know, we'll never know, and you can't ever go back and psychoanalyze things or anything, but it's so interesting with this one because there's no signs, you know.
Yep.
Barger, it was just going worse and worse and worse, and nobody would be surprised from any point in your life. But with Harrell, all you hear about is how good of a dad he was, how good of a husband he was, you know, and again, he got divorced and had a second wife.
This reminds me of the football players, man.
Yeah.
Chris Benoit, the WWE wrestler, great. All the wrestlers said he was the babysitter of our kids. We loved him. And then one night he snapped, killed his wife, his kid, and himself.
Right.
And they're like, this is somebody that you would never have thought that would have done anything like
the
this.
greatest family guy you would have thought of.
I'm really interested to see as CTE research gets better when they start getting into the military, because head trauma, it doesn't take much, man.
Well, that's what they call the signature wound of the Iraq War is traumatic brain injuries from all the IEDs and everything, and a lot of these guys. So it's, and you know, talking to you a lot, we talk about it's sometimes delayed in it's degenerative. It can get worse and stuff. So I don't know if it was that. Nobody knows. That was what they declared at the time of his death. We'll probably never have a motive for this, and I don't think we ever will. It's beyond tragic that he survived so much and he did so much and he thrived after the war, but we don't know what happened and we never will. So it's hard to comment.
Off topic, but I had a friend that got in a really bad car wreck, got ejected out of the car, almost was killed, head trauma, drilled the skull, everything. Within 10 years, he drove up the mountain, went to a turnout, called his mom, said, I love you, called the CHP, said, I'm up here. As soon as the CHP turned in, he drove the car off the cliff and died.
I remember you telling me.
And you would have never known, you know?
Right.
So I think a lot of these type of stories, or the last one, you know, the same, Barger, the same thing is like, they didn't know about this degenerative head trauma stuff. And you see the progression as it gets worse, and maybe his was just he could have been fighting it internally because he was a tough guy.
Right, exactly.
You're not going to see
and that's
it in a
true
guy like
too.
that.
And it could have been just PTSD or something like that too, because that's a good thing that you brought up. He could have been hiding it from everybody, because
which is most likely with a guy like him.
It's part of the culture and it's part of those things, and that might have been the way he fought it, and then it might have just been something that exploded inside him that night.
Or it just overwhelmed him, and he had, you know, irrational thoughts, or he thought, he thought it was the Japanese, or who knows, man.
I'm going to find his citation here.
Yeah,
if
let's
you can,
get it. That's an interesting ending. Holy crap. That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, not the ending that we wanted, certainly.
That's one of those weird things. So what do they do in a death like that, man, when it's something, when he actually went on a homicidal thing.
As far as
do you
what?
still celebrate?
Well, fortunately they did. He has some schools named after him, and he has some other things. And it's important to remember, like we talked about with Barger, to separate it. And we don't know what caused that. It could have been a wound in and of itself, right?
I think it is.
I agree that it is, but we'll never know that. But it's the important thing, like I said, is to remember what they did when they did it. So here we're going to go ahead and read a citation.
Physically, you don't see the wounds mentally.
And I hesitated on this one to even bring that part up. I wanted to almost give it a happy ending, but I think it's important to recognize for the guys that didn't earn the Medal of Honor that are struggling out there, that, hey, even these guys that we glorify and even these guys that are at the top and even
perfect,
these guys,
man.
They're not perfect and they're struggling
Very
too.
imperfect
exactly.
in some cases.
And that burden of these things is
But that doesn't change the action.
Right. So to get back to the action, just to give him his just due, Sergeant William G. Harrell, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, as a leader of an assault group serving with the 1st Battalion, 28th Marines, 5th Marine Division. During hand-to-hand combat with the enemy Japanese at Iwo Jima, Volcano Islands on March 3rd, 1945. Hand-to-hand combat, if you're ever in hand-to-hand combat, something has gone wrong, right? And that's the most vicious thing in the world. I don't care how good of a fighter you think you are. That's just chaos. That's melee.
Hand-to-hand combat with grenades.
Right, and carbines and things, and tooth and nail and shoving grenades into people, right? On March 3rd, 1945, standing watch alternately with another Marine in a terrain studded with caves and ravines. Sergeant Harrell was holding a position in a perimeter defense around the company command post when Japanese troops infiltrated our lines in the early hours of dawn. Awakened by sudden attack, he quickly opened fire with his carbine and killed 2 of the enemy as they emerged from a ravine in the light of a star shell burst. I've seen shell burst, and I've seen this. You can always imagine that's just that blackness and the chaos, and then that slow, as the sky illuminates, and just think of your nightmares. If you flick on the lights and something's in the cloud, that's it. The lights come on, and there's screaming fanatical enemy coming at you with a desire to kill you. Unmindful of his danger, as hostile grenades fell closer, he waged a fierce lone battle until an exploding missile tore off his left hand and fractured his thigh. He was attempting to reload the carbine when his companion returned from the command post with another weapon. Wounded again by a Japanese who rushed his foxhole wielding a saber in the darkness, so again, he's wounded there by the saber as well, Sergeant Harrell succeeded in drawing his pistol and killing his opponent, and then ordered his wounded companion to a place of safety. Sorry, it's crazy. It's crazy. And again, at no point would he be any less of a man if he bugged out and ran, or if he crawled, or if he said, my wounds are too severe. But everything he's doing, he's going forward in that foxhole, right? Sergeant Harrell succeeded in drawing his pistol and killing his opponent, and then ordered his wounded companion to a place of safety. Exhausted by profuse bleeding, but still unbeaten, he fearlessly met the challenge of 2 more enemy troops who charged his position and placed a grenade near his head. Killing one man with a pistol, he grasped the sputtering grenade with his good right hand and pushed it painfully towards the crouching soldier. Saw his remaining assailant destroyed but his own hand severed in the explosion. At dawn, Sergeant Harrell was evacuated from a position hedged by the bodies of 12 dead Japanese, at least 5 of whom he had personally destroyed in his self-sacrificing defense of the command post. His grim fortitude, exceptional valor, and indomitable fighting spirit against almost insurmountable odds reflect the highest credit upon himself and enhance the finest traditions of the United States Naval Service.
Man. Jeez.
Another Iwo Jima hero, I don't want to say forgotten, but not as remembered as he should be.
Probably not as remembered because of the way it ended, huh?
Perhaps.
People just kind of not glossed over it, but it's like, oh, let's not highlight this one.
Yeah.
It ends bad.
Well, I've found in doing my research, you find a lot of articles that just don't mention that. They'll say he died. I think he was 43 years old when he died. They'll say, he died in 1964. It's
one of those tough ones because those people that he killed have families.
And they deserve that respect too. Absolutely.
They don't want to see him glorified, but man, when you think about, like I said, the brain stuff or the trauma or the PTSD that he was suffering from, he's a victim in that too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He was wounded in the left hand, he was wounded in the right hand, he was wounded in the thigh, he was wounded with shrapnel, but he was also wounded mentally and physically by that.
Every time we talk about
grenade.
these and a guy gets a grenade goes off, every grenade, and he woke up.
Right.
He wasn't KO'd.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And a KO is bad.
Right. Fitzmaurice talked about he felt like he was underwater.
Yeah.
And
that's head
Sammy
trauma.
Davis felt like he was swimming, you know, and they're kind of seeing these lights, and there's this haziness
over the head
and
injury
stuff.
parts.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that happened and now it's over. It's not over.
No,
that's going to have these lingering effects.
And especially the ones that we've talked about where it's over and like in the same battle, knocked out, hand-to-hand combat, grenade blasts. You just think about what that puts your head through, man.
Yeah. But again,
but he didn't lose his spirit.
I was going to say, in the moment, though, while all these things are happening, there was at no point did he fall back. At no point did he retreat. At no point did he raise his hand and say, help.
A cloudy brain.
Right.
You see it in MMA fights where they wake up and they...
Right.
You know what I mean? But this guy, there's no stop.
But even in MMA fights, a lot of times when they start trying to take the ref down and stuff, they're hazy still. He had the presence of mind to look at his partner and tell him, fall back.
That's what I mean. You're
fall
still
back.
In the fight, 100%.
And he was quoted as saying after, when he wrote this down, he said, I thought I was dying, so I ordered Carter to make a run for it. Not, I thought I was dying, so I prayed to God, or I thought I was dying, so I tried to crawl for help, or I thought I was dying, so I fell back. I thought I was dying, so I ordered Carter to make a run for it, right?
He's thinking about him.
Get out of here while you still can. And that embodies the Medal of Honor in almost all of these, whether it's get out of here while I cover this, or get out of here while I, try to take this white phosphorus, or whatever that is. You go to safety. I'm going to do everything I can to hold this position. Even though my hand is gone, and I physically can't load my weapon, I can't load the Grande, I can't load the carbine, I still have my body. I still have what's in me, right?
Yeah.
At the end, his final act with the grenade, he literally was unarmed. He doesn't have his pistol. He doesn't have anything. All he has is his body and his willpower and his ferocity, right?
Yeah.
And can you imagine that Japanese soldier? You and your buddy jump in on this wounded animal whose hand's missing. He's bleeding all over. He probably already looks dead. He's covered in blackness and grit and blood. And we've been fighting this position. And you watch your friend get killed by him. You watch him and you toss that grenade and you think it's over. And all of a sudden he grits his teeth and that fire in his eyes and shoves it right in your face. Well, actually, it'd be his right hand at that point.
Crazy.
Absolutely. And he was in that sense.
Yeah.
And he destroyed that enemy soldier. He destroyed the second enemy soldier and he protected that position. And just to kind of finalize it again, despite the other things that happened later, in that moment, he protected that command post. Every man in that command post is alive because of him and Carter. Every man in that command post, every child, every son, and every daughter that was born to them, and everybody that was protected by those people that were able to call for artillery fire, able to call for support, able to
that butterfly effect
coordinate the wounded,
right?
All because of this guy, all because of him and Carter and their two-man Alamo.
You almost wish there was
position.
A way you could look at it had he not done it, what would have happened? I mean, a lot of these battles hinge on that action.
Right.
You know
How many more days could Iwo Jima have lasted?
Right.
How many more people could have gone down? Who might have lost? Who might have been lost in that position?
How much longer would it have gone?
How the tide of battle could have shifted? But this one man's refusal to give even an inch of ground, despite how wounded he was. So
awesome, man.
Yep. So that's the story of William Harrell. And
William Harrell, what a badass! Jeez,
it deserves to be remembered. And there's going to be some good pictures up of him with both the hooks hand, and again that smile on his face still. So that's how I choose to remember William Harrell: 2 hooks on his hand and a smile on his face, and that's where we're at.
Indomitable spirit. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks again for listening. Give us a comment below, like I said. If you guys have any suggestions or, like I said, I tried to throw some Marines in here to get you guys some more Marines.
Yeah.
If you guys want more Marines, let me know. If you want something else or any of that. But I'm going to try to do an Audie Murphy episode or two, and then we're going to kind of focus on some of the lesser-known guys, I think. So.
All right. We'll be back.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.